members of one family have been found shot to death in Amityville, Long Island.
I've seen 6 bright orange colored lights, and they're like almost in a diamond or triangle shape.
Up in that direction, like a loud branch breaking, and then we looked, and there was this creature, and it ran down this hill, and then it disappeared.
And dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria.
Hey everybody, welcome to Oregon Paranormal Radio Live at the 5th Annual Oregon Ghost Conference here in Seaside, Oregon. My name is Casey Goodwin, and I'm sitting here with sweet baby Jay.
I'm never going to live that down. It's stuck with me forever, and I'm giving Kristen the stink eye right now, even though she didn't invent the name, she passed it along.
So I thought one really cool thing that we could do is, since we're here on the coast is not short of any legends, urban legends. But before that, I thought, let's do a quick recap of everything that's been going on this weekend, because this has been a fantastic showing. This location is awesome. Rocky has busted his butt getting this together. Kristen Gray, Bradley, and Aaron Collins, wherever he's disappeared to. Collectively, they've done so much to pull this together. It's really amazing.
Absolutely, and this is where I had spoken earlier in one of my talks that the Oregon Ghost Conference was my very first conference, and where I was introduced to so many of the vendors and guests. I've got some friends out in the audience there that were actually before the Ghost Conference that have been loyal patrons ever since. They keep showing up. I can't get them to go away.
Someday they will.
Yeah, I know.
They have to die sometime. So, who out there has ever heard of the Bandage Man of Canon Beach? I'm sure
people.
I'm sure quite a few of you have heard a little bit about him during some of the tours this weekend. That's one of the ones we're covering tonight. And so a lot of the research that we've done just in the last couple of weeks on Bandage Man, there are so many different iterations of this legend. Some of them date back to the Tillamook burn and a landslide and a mill worker. And they also said that he was an escaped mental patient.
Well, that makes the story better, so I would go with that one.
Right. And so the main claims are that he shows up on this old bypass portion of the highway outside of Canon Beach. And we decided, why not make a trip out here and do a little bit of an investigation into an urban legend. And this is a little bit of documentation of what we did. We've added some spooky music just to make the mood just right.
Yeah, you have to, because that's one of the things Aaron Collins was talking about in his last talk, is that you have to add in scary music.
Scary music.
For these sort of things.
Hey, what's up, man?
Do you have any issues finding it?
No, good directions, but it's cold out here.
It is.
So you gave me the basics, but why don't you tell me a little bit about, why don't you go in depth a little bit more and tell me exactly why it is we're out here.
Okay. So we're doing the podcast on Sunday.
Yeah.
I thought, why not make a trip out here beforehand and put one of the urban legends that we're going to be covering to the test.
Okay.
The Bandage Man. The Bandage Man of Canon Beach.
Okay, so tell me about this Bandage Man.
So, as you know, we're in the outskirts of Canon Beach. We're on an actual bypass part of the highway from right before 101 was put in. And the story behind this stretch is that there was a milling accident. I don't know how long ago. That's what the story says. And the guy got caught up in a mill and died. And he now haunts this area. So when the passing motorists come by, they report feelings of dread, the feeling that they're not alone, the smell of rotting flesh. In some instances, the windows get busted out as they're actually driving this
Okay,
stretch.
so this is the guy where people talk about him getting in your truck.
Right.
Okay.
And he also has been known to get inside the cab of the car. And on very extreme cases, he's been known to eat dogs.
You didn't bring a dog, did you?
I just on the off chance that this is actually real, I left my dog at home.
That's a good idea.
So I figured, why not put it to the test and do a couple runs down this road?
Okay, well, it is an urban legend.
It is, yeah.
We could end up being here all night, but...
Right.
So what do you got planned? What do you think we should do then?
Well, you gave me the GoPro. I've got my GoPro.
Okay.
I've got the inside of the car all set up. So I figured we'll hit record and just see what happens. We can do a couple runs. I've got the walkie-talkies. I figure you stay here, I'll do the first run.
Okay.
And then you can do the second run and then just kind of play it by ear. I don't know how long we'll be out here. I'm not anticipating anything happening.
No, we could be here all night too.
Right.
And with as dark as it is out here,
Right.
First of all, I'm not even sure your beams are going to catch anything
No.
in the headlights.
No. And the one thing we do have to keep in mind is there are some residential houses on the opposite side of this highway.
Okay.
So we'll just try and be as respectful and quiet as we can because we are probably going to be doing quite a few passes.
All right, sounds good to me.
All right, well then, do you want me to do the first run?
Yeah, why don't you do the first one? I'll tell you what, just as we get started here,
Yeah.
why don't you just pull out into the front? Shoot, we're not going to get any cell phone coverage out here.
No, we have no cell phone coverage. Oh, I've got walkie-talkies.
Okay, good. So why don't we do this? Pull into the road out here, and let's just check your lights, your beams. I'm curious. We could drive right by this guy 100 times and miss him if he's out of your beams.
Right.
So let's just kind of see what sort of visibility you have with these.
Okay, perfect. Come again? Turn them on.
I'm assuming I'm very much in view.
I can see you.
Let's hope he doesn't come out in front of you, otherwise that's going to be kind of a mess.
All right, I'm gonna get staged.
All right, go ahead and take your first run.
Bandage, man. Let's do this. Yeah.
Okay, just keep in mind I am sitting out here in the cold by myself.
Copy that. There should be 5 miles, but you're already starting to cut out a bit.
Sorry, what was that?
Said they should be about 5 miles. Can you still hear me? So much for 5 mile range. Making my first run now. There's nothing in my back seat. I think I'm checking my back seat like I'm paranoid now. I'm doing my run on my way. Nothing so far. It smells out here, but I don't think it's the Bandage Man. Not a thing.
Well,
So
not a thing, but
it
I
smells
lost
out
you.
here.
I lost you on the radio.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were coming or going.
It does smell a little bit back there. I don't think it's our guy. It could be the car. I'm thinking you do this run, take it out a little bit further. I went out about 2 miles.
Okay.
So yeah.
You taking it slow or fast?
About 40.
All right, just know I'll be without radio
Okay.
if I go farther. So,
Okay.
but yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Good luck, buddy. Thanks, man. I'll keep in touch, and you'll notice when I'm out of range.
Sounds good.
It is kind of creepy out here.
It's pretty eerie out here in the dark by yourself.
Yeah, now you know how I felt. So am I supposed to be like feeling anything?
Feeling dread, feeling like you're being watched, the smell of rotting flesh, you know, the typical things we hear on cases.
You know, it's not like I'm Karen Fraser or anything. I can't just feel shit like this, you know.
You're gonna love that. Totally.
All right, I'm starting to lose you. You there? I think I lost you. I'll be as quick as I can. Hey Casey, I'm just gonna head back. Hey Casey, you there?
I mean, you didn't really think we were going to find the Bandage Man.
Everything's okay. I'm right here.
No Jay Verbergs and no mustaches were harmed in the filming of that.
Keep in mind that it's 10 minutes of your life you are never going to get back.
That's true.
Watching us drive in a car.
And Ben Robison is our Bandage Man.
He was kind enough
It was
to-
kind of funny because when we were out there filming, we had bandages all over Ben's head. And he was covered in blood. And we're in the middle of nowhere. And every once in a while, a car would go by. And we had the doors open and the lights were on in the car. And he's sitting in the back seat covered in blood. None of the cars stopped to help.
Let's assume they didn't see him, because if they saw him and kept going, Well, chances are we would have had the police out there.
Yeah, and we even at one point had the thought of, well, maybe we should just leave these bandages on the side of the road.
See what happens.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's how rumors start, and maybe that's where Bandage Man started.
But what's interesting about Bandage Man is, there have been so many iterations of this over the years, and it's, it goes back to the 1960s and people going out there and parking and making out. It almost seems like it was built up as more of a cautionary tale to keep kids from screwing around.
On that note, thank you for making me not go out there and make out with you to see if we could draw him out, because
that's
that would
a whole
make
other
for
movie.
Awkward, yeah.
But it's a very interesting story. It stood the test of time. People still talk about it. It's almost everywhere you go, at least in this area, you talk about the Bandage Man, and they go, oh, yeah, the Bandage Man, I've seen him. So we'll open it up at the end of the show and see if anybody out there's got any stories that they've heard over the years, any of the locals maybe, that could hopefully fill us in on some things. And I want to thank Jeff Davis, because he provided us with some information that we didn't even know, because we didn't even know where the location was. We just knew somewhere in Cannon Beach, just on the outskirts. So thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, there was one scenario or a piece of information that was provided by Jeff that made for a very plausible idea of why the Bandage Man might actually be real.
Right.
And that's what I was fascinated with. And reading through the websites, trying to research the data and figure out where this all had come from, where it had started, I remember reading one website that actually talked about knowing someone who, as a child, had known of someone who was approached by Bandage Man.
Right.
Which, that's when I went, okay, that's interesting. So maybe that's where part of the story may have manipulated into the legend it is today. Maybe you just don't know with local legends. And
I've always been fascinated with it, because when I first moved up here, I remember buying a book, and it was I think it was a haunted directory, and it was a listing state by state.
That would make it really
city.
easy. Why don't we use that as our staple go-to guide when we're trying to do an investigation?
One of the stories was Bandage Man, so it's always been a very interesting story and something that's always kind of been in the back of my head. Every time we drive out to the coast, I was like, where's Bandage Man? Where is this highway, and is it real? Mm-hmm. But again, how do you test an urban legend without going to a location and testing it out?
Driving up and down the road several times with cameras.
Yeah.
So what do you possibly have historically that might lend credibility to this legend? That's what I want to know.
Well, and we, in the searching that we did, we couldn't find any newspaper clippings. It was all anecdotal stories. Matter of fact, the book that Jeff had loaned us was basically this barfly that was just relaying the story of Bandage Man and the experiences that he had. But again, there are no real credible stories or newspaper clippings about this particular person.
But he did make reference to the Tillamook burn, and the reason that was crucial as well. There were injuries involved with the forest fire. Many people on the Oregon coast know of the Tillamook burn, which actually happened, I think, 3 times, taking out an immense...
Is it always in threes?
That's how you know it's a demon. If it happens in threes, it's a demon that has caused the fire. And maybe the demon was just wrapped in bandages. I don't know.
Right.
But no, so you have the forest fire, and he was talking to you about this, so I don't have a lot of the details. But if it was during the forest fire, I don't think there were any deaths involved with the fire, is what he said.
There were injuries.
But there were plenty of injuries. Yeah. So during this forest fire and some of the tragedy of that happening with injuries, could someone have been on a side of a road covered in bandages needing help? And that's where it spawned from.
Right.
These stories start somewhere. I just don't understand how. But coming from a credible source, it's easy to see how they can be manipulated over time.
Right. And speaking of manipulation, they morph into crazy stories. Because Bandage Man, of course, was supposed to be a logger. Yeah. And then over time, he's turned into Bigfoot. He's been turned into an alien, and now it's a Bigfoot alien interdimensional hybrid.
If it would just die and become a ghost, that would complete the gamut.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Cautionary tale. Don't make out on Bandage Man Road.
I feel like we should warn people where that is. Maybe we shouldn't, and just let them go and see if we get any reports back. Everybody go out near Cannon Beach and make out tonight. Get back to us.
And don't take your dog.
No. no. But the coast is always, and it's not just the Oregon coast. It seems like every small coastal town seems to have their legends and their stories and things like that. And in fact, one of the things I talked about in my talk today was the immense amount of tribal communities that were here, how they buried their dead, the fact, Highway 101. In fact, that is a great thing about it's not a great thing. Sorry, that sounds terrible. But the fact that the Indian burial grounds were located all up and down the coast, and when they finally decided to put in the highway, they were literally digging up graves.
Right.
And one of the local legends was that the entire highway is just over the top of thousands of bones of the Indians that had been buried. And while there's some truth to it, I couldn't find any historical relevance in any of the newspapers I researched that stated, hey, we've come across thousands of bones.
Right.
And I think that's one of those things that slowly morphs is, yes, there were burial grounds all up and down the coast. Yes, they probably encountered some bones.
Right.
Yes, there's probably some bones under the highway, but it's not like 101 is the frickin' mecca of Indian death burial that we drive over every day and give no credit to.
Right. And with progress, it's difficult to unearth all of this stuff. So a lot of times it just gets buried over, and then over time, when construction crews come in to do renovations to something, they end up digging up even more.
Yeah. And of course, nowadays, there's more responsibility. You dig up anything that is reminiscent of a burial site, whether it be Indian or anything, construction halts, scientists come in, it's research determined what type of bone it might be, just to see what's going on. But hey, that's how they find mass murderers too, so you got to be grateful for that.
That's true. Yeah. So when we decided to do Coastal Legends, I mean, the thing that was in my head was The Fog. I love that movie. It's a great movie, but I was thinking like the boat with the lepers, and they ended up burning the boat down so they wouldn't come to town. And
it's a good idea.
And
boat full of lepers coming into your town is not what you really want.
They wreak havoc. They steal the gold and all that stuff. So a lot of the coastal towns have to do with treasures and these. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's interesting how some of these stories are based on fact, but then they end up morphing.
Well, when you're looking at the treasure of Neocani Mountain, that predates Lewis and Clark. I mean, that goes way back.
Right.
So, and to this day, people still believe they might know where the treasure is.
Right.
I read one article that was saying the city or whatever was kind of outlawing this treasure exploration hunt because people have died looking for this. They have lost their fortunes. They've spent their entire savings trying to find this treasure, this gold, and no one has ever found it.
Well, it's like the treasure they found in Astoria back in the 80s. Apparently there was a pirate ship within Haystack Rock that nobody knew about.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, come on.
Oh, geez, here we go again. He's sucking me right into... Why does this happen every time? He gets me all intrigued and he leads me down some path, and what he's trying to tell me is this Goonies story. So, you've got the Lewis and Clark expedition that came out.
Right.
And, they're traveling. Once they get to Astoria and in that area, they're traveling up and down, making, hunting and basically getting to know the community of Indians and everything going on there. And there was talk as far back then of the Indians talking about some men that they had seen, drop anchor. A few of the men had rowed into makeshift port. They'd gotten out of their little boat. They hiked up the mountain with a box. They were unsure if it was a treasure or a body or what. They just took off with this box, hiked Neocani Mountain, and dug a hole, put in the box, and then one of the guys turned to his other sailor buddy, killed him, dropped him on the box, and covered it up.
Boom.
Dead. Now, the key to this is that the reason they killed his buddy and threw him in is because he knew the Indians they have their sacred rites of passage when you transition. So they knew by having a body buried on top of that treasure, the Indians would never go to recover it because it was now a sacred spot.
Interesting.
And they were the only ones that saw him. Nobody else was out there. So now... Then you look at Sir Francis Drake. Okay. Now he circumnavigated the globe. They had belief that he had come into Nehalem Bay, and one of the discoveries out on the mountain and in various locations were these stones with engravings on them. Now, when those stones were found in the 60s, there were people that believed these are the markers that indicate where the treasure is that the Spanish buried. So that's what really started the treasure hunters going on. But as it turns out, these stones were nothing more than markers. They were survey markers as Sir Francis Drake was surveying the area and creating maps. So all of these little intricate detailed carvings on the stones were different methods that were used in Europe for surveying prior to the tools that really brought about the modern map making. And that's how they determined this is how we know that Sir Francis Drake had been here using those English methods of map making, and it had nothing to do with the treasure.
So he completely forgot to put some of those survey stones in the big hole in a couple of the maps that you've shown me.
Yeah, but you know what? It's very possible. Sir Francis Drake might have pulled up and said, hey, you know what? I hear there's treasure out here. Let's go get the treasure, and while we're at it, let's make a map so we know where to come back to.
Right.
So, and on that same note, if I ever am in the middle of the woods and I come across a hole that's got a shit ton of gold in it, the last thing I'm going to do is tell any of you freaks that, hey, I just found the gold, because then everybody wants to step in and take advantage of it. And you know, historically, I'm going to go melt it down. I'm going to spend it on a cool motorhome and go drive around looking for other treasure.
Yeah.
See, I've got a plan. That's why I know exactly
that.
what I'm going to do.
I cannot blame you for that. So where on the coast is this?
It's south of here a little bit. In fact, it's right above Manzanita. It's basically this big turn it overlooks Manzanita, so it's south of Cannon Beach.
So what are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm out there. I brought my shovel.
All right,
okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay.
So,
yeah,
huge urban legend, the Lafayette Witch. That's another story that I've grown up. I had an uncle that ran the Office Tavern in Lafayette for a while. We spent a lot of time there over the years. And I remember when I would stay there, we would hear stories of the Lafayette Witch. So
I wanted to bring it up today. My talk was kind of hijacked by technology today, and I got off to a rough start, and then I got all frazzled, and then I was scared, and then I was jumbled, and I didn't know what to say. So it started off pretty rough, and I didn't really get to complete it all. And truth be told, I didn't finish my presentation because I was talking to some other folks here, and I realized, why am I sitting here trying to finish my talk instead of meeting people that are far more intelligent than me, that I could learn something from? So I just said, you know what, I'm done. I'll worry about it later.
That would explain why you weren't talking to me.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things I wanted to bring up in my talk was a few weeks ago, I got on Facebook and I said, you know what, I got Monday off. I should go explore something. I haven't explored something in quite some time. And I got a lot of responses, and as I'm on the web researching stuff, I typed in haunted Oregon, abandoned, you know, all the typical things I like to do in my free time.
Right.
Just pathetic. Anyway, on the first page, one of the things that popped up was the Lafayette Witch. And I went, okay, Lafayette isn't far. It's just a little less than an hour down the road. Maybe that's what I'll do. So I just did a quick search on Lafayette Witch, and boom, I got pages and pages of information about this witch that was hung in Lafayette, because she was a witch. You get it?
Of course.
Okay. So I'm thinking, I didn't even know that happened on the West Coast at all.
Right.
That we even were presented with witches. I mean, Salem witch trials and all that predates the development of Oregon. So I would have figured out by this time,
a couple hundred years, right?
Yeah, we've probably gotten over the witch thing that's even going to happen.
Right.
So I don't understand this. So I read some of the reports. People talk about the witch that was hung, and she was buried in the Masonic cemetery in an unmarked grave. And I'm thinking, oh, this is cool. And people were being chased out of the cemetery. They were getting scratches. Mm-hmm. She would yell at them and all these terrifying things. And I'm thinking, perfect. Mm-hmm. I want to be terrified. Let's go see what I can find out. So I hopped in the car and headed out, stayed the night in McMinnville, and the next morning I got up and headed out. Now, before I even got there, I did a little bit of a research behind this witch thing, because I was like, you know what, this doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
It turns out there was never a witch. Imagine that. In fact, there wasn't even a woman that was hung. And what it was her son that was hung. Oh. And it was believed that she put a curse on the town.
Like you do.
Yeah. I mean, your son gets hung, you put a curse on it. What else are you going to do? And I couldn't find any evidence of this curse other than word of mouth sort of presentations about the history of Lafayette Witch and things like that. It was said that the town would burn down 3 times. And what I last read is on the second time the town burned down, everybody was really excited. Because they're like, it's almost over. It's almost over, yes. But again, I couldn't find any reference to that. So here's what I did find in my research, is that a gentleman by the name of Albert Marple had axe murdered a guy. And
like you do.
Yeah. When you're mad, sometimes it's reasonable to axe murder, given the circumstances, so you have to take matters into your own hands. But he was arrested. He was tried. I do have documentation from his arrest warrant to his judgment and ruling that he would be hanged. I've got all of this history and this information. It's even got his mother's name, Anna Marple. So somewhere, again, as it was given down the line, she was a gypsy, which over time became a witch through word of mouth. And what do witches and gypsies do? They curse the shit, which is why that makes sense. But she wasn't a gypsy, so now I'm confused. And I don't even know how it came about. But what was interesting, though, is so you've got Marple here, who's now in jail. He's pleading innocent. I'm not responsible for this. He blamed it on some local Masons. He said they had conspired to kill him. So I was like, that's really confusing. Now, while he was in jail, he makes a stupid mistake of telling another inmate the entire story and gives the truth that, yes, he had murdered this guy with an axe single-handedly, blah, blah, blah. What's interesting to me is when he was buried, they buried him in the Masonic cemetery in an unmarked grave. Now, Marple had been acquitted from a previous murder where someone had been axed. Go figure. This was not a good guy. You know, he had his issues. Maybe he was a great guy and he just got out of control every now and then with an axe. Great. Know your limits. Don't carry an axe. But why was he buried in a Masonic cemetery, which is, to my understanding, a place of respect? And if he was blaming the Masons who weren't actually
And he wasn't
involved,
a Mason, right?
What's that?
He wasn't a Mason.
I haven't found any indication that he was, but even I would imagine that someone responsible for murder and hung, they wouldn't say, okay, now let's put him in a prestigious burial spot where all of our loved ones are. Granted, he was in an unmarked grave. Maybe that was the only cemetery at the time. I don't know. But apparently, regardless, his father came back and dug him up and took him to another burial ground.
And do you know, well, and I don't even know if you touched on this, but what was the year, what was the time that this actually took place?
You know what? I don't have the years in front of me, and I can't remember. I've literally been talking years all day. So I don't want to give the wrong year. Keep talking for a second.
I'm interested in finding out shortly. I'm hoping to turn it around to some of you for questions or maybe even some stories of local legends that we might not have thought to cover during this show. And we're searching.
Wait for it.
Wait.
You know what? It's not even on my notes right here. It's on my computer, so you're out
no
of luck.
worries.
Yeah.
It's all good.
But anyway, so that's the gist of the Lafayette Witch. And now here's the thing. There are times when I feel guilty about revealing information because there are certain individuals, there are certain groups that will go and investigate or research based around a legend or a myth or half-truths.
Right.
And I don't want to discredit the work that they have done. So one of the things that is important to think about is I'm not saying the Lafayette Cemetery isn't haunted. There could be hauntings there. Who knows what's going on there? Right. But we want to make sure we don't continue to develop a legend and grow it from there. We want to at least have as much information as possible.
Right, and that's key. And it kind of goes back to that talk that we had yesterday about going to pay-and-play locations, is that you want to make sure that you're doing your homework when we're going to these places. And even though a lot of them are urban legends, a lot of it is loosely based on some historical event, but over time has morphed into something else. So it's good to go in knowing that information.
You know what I do have here in front of me? I have my book. Jeez, and I just lost it. No, I have this book in front of me, and I was using this for some of my research, and I didn't get any of the information. It's called Necktie Parties, Legal Executions in Oregon from 1851 to 1905. That sounds like a real snoozer, but it's pretty cool. There's some history in there that is just absolutely fascinating. And I can jump over here, and I can look at chapter number... I thought this was
exciting
quicker
radio.
I know. Oh, it's in here, and I don't know where. Oh, wait. No. Oh, there we go. Chapter 131, State of Oregon versus Richard Marple, 1887.
1887.
So 1887 was the last. Now, in doing your research, here's a little bit of a fun fact you find out. See, when you go digging for this stuff, you find things that you don't normally recognize as there. But Richard Marple was actually the last hanging in the county. So
interesting.
Not the last hanging in Oregon, but the last hanging in that county.
And that supposed tree that the hanging took place, it's gone.
Gone. In fact, this is off one of the Lafayette News websites or newsletters talked of the day they were happy that they removed the tree. It's no longer there.
Bad reputation.
Yeah. There's a witch there, man. Come on.
So is there anybody out there that has a story from the coast?
A local legend that you've heard.
Local legend or a local haunt, something that may not have been covered at all this weekend.
Nobody knows anything dark and scary. She does, but she's got her mouth full. I did hear that.
Yeah, I saw your hand go up. Do you have something?
You saw a ghost. Where, was there any specific location? He's going to bring you a microphone to make it easier for you.
Hi. My boyfriend had died, and I was the one that found his body when he died. It was very unexpected. Oh. And 2 months later, before he died, I worked in a grocery store, and he was in, and he thought I was mad at him. And he said, "You ignored me." And I said, "No, I wouldn't do that, Danny. I'd let you know if I was upset." Mm-hmm. Anyway, he died, and 2 months later, I'm working at the store I work at, and I'm in an express, and I open my belt to walk forward. And as I walk forward like this, he's standing there. And he's wearing black Carhartts. He's wearing a camouflage jacket down to there. And his hair was down. And he was solid. I always thought ghosts were like you see through them, and they're,
I actually hear a lot
ghostly.
Of people talk about solid. And to me, I go, well, that doesn't make sense. I've seen movies. They're clear. What are you talking about?
Right. He was solid, like I touched him. And a look on his face was like, she did it again, because we knew each other for 20 years, and he didn't ask me out for 20 years. And we would joke around. And he asked me out, and we went out, and 6 months later, he died.
Oh.
And the look at us was just like, I think she did it again. I would be so in love with him. I would be flustered. I'd always drop something. And he'd always say,
yeah.
Christine, what'd you do? You dropped something. I go, it didn't break, come on, And, yeah, it was just really weird. I think it was, I don't know.
That's cool. So, and it wasn't a scary thing?
No, and it wasn't the clothes he died in.
No.
He wasn't wearing what he died in, and he wasn't wearing what he got buried in.
He was wearing what he was comfortable in, or what you were comfortable.
I don't know. It might have been what he wore that day when he went shopping and he thought I ignored him. But I've never seen him again, and I've never seen anything else like that. In my experience, sometimes if I've only had two people that died really close, and when they appear to me, they're always in a dream, and they always look real, and I feel like I wake up and I see them, but they don't talk. If I love somebody and they die, they never talk in a dream. And then that's the last time I see them,
That's really cool.
So
yeah.
That was my ghost thing.
I mean, that's very tragic, and I'm sorry for that, but it's kind of a blessing in disguise that you got to experience that.
Thank you for sharing. You have a story?
All right.
Urban legend? Rumors?
Rumors. That's awesome.
When I was in middle school, I was sitting in math class, and I was sitting in a chair that had the back facing the wall with windows behind it, and the windows had been closed at this point, and I saw this red go right behind me, and the only person in the class that had a red shirt on was sitting right in front of me. And I could see him clear as day, and then I saw red go right behind me. And I looked, and there was nothing there, and the windows, and I saw the blinds closed, and I was like, okay, so that's probably a ghost or something. And there have been things passed down from 8th graders to the youngers saying that there's ghosts all throughout the school, and sometimes you could see them, sometimes you can't. And my little sister said that she had gone there one night because she was looking for her mom. And she went in and she had seen some of them, like the ones in the 6th grade hall and the cafeteria. And she said that they were kind of creepy because it was fixing to be a storm that night, too.
Oh, yeah. Electricity in the air. Who knows what that brings up?
And she said that the ones in the cafeteria really freaked her out, and she just booked it out of there.
You know, it's really weird that you bring that up because I can't tell you how many schools and theaters I know of that have rumors of haunting. If I'm dead, the last place I want to be for eternity is in the frickin' school. Now, the theater I get, you know, you can watch Star Wars, you got good movies. Sure, you have to put up with a bad one every now and then, like the new Batman, Superman. But hey, for the most part, you get to watch some cool stuff. But schools, I don't get that. And yeah, I hear it quite often.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else have any stories, urban legends from the coast that they've experienced? Anybody? We're all weirdos, so we're going to completely relate.
1994, my husband and I were on a vacation for our honeymoon. We met at Job Corps in Waldport, and we were driving around the area outside of Florence, and we took this old road up in the hills, and we came out into this beautiful valley. I mean, just beautiful valley rotating around the hills back into Florence. And he started crying, and I looked over at him, and I'm like, what's wrong? And he's like, there was a lot of death through here. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, death as in like death back in the old days, death, slaughter, massacre. He's like just speeding like a bat out of the area. So we left the area. We had a B&B out there. So when we got back, I looked in the area in the history books, you know, and there had been a massacre back there from the Indians and the settlers back like Silet's days and stuff, and they just killed everybody out there, you know, just because, you know, I don't know why. It was like in the early 1800s from early settlers, but it was just that little area. And when he got out of it and got back down into the hills closer to Florence, he was okay. But he's like, we'll never go back into that little section ever again.
That's really interesting. And yeah, as you were saying that, I'm going, I know there were a lot of Indians killed down there. I know there was a lot of death. I know these things just kind of pick up and carry. But it's really cool that you experience something that you can't figure out why you're experiencing it. And as you research the history a little bit, you find reason to why something might have happened. And then you go, okay, I'm not just a wussy crying in the car or a weirdo. There's a reason why this possibly could be happening, and that's what we're all doing here. So that's really cool. In fact, that really makes me think about, between the Native Americans that were in the area. It's funny when you think of Native American. When I think of Native Americans, you think of the old Western movies.
Sure. But
the Indians on the coast were very different type of Indians.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you were dealing with a lot of fishermen, and the communities were spread all up and down the coast, and they aren't the names that you assume, the Apache and Lakotas and all that. You know, you're dealing with the Coos and the Chinook and all those type of Indians. But all up and down this coast, at the same time you're dealing with all of the Native Americans, the Pacific Northwest is also dealing with, it's the ship graveyard of the Pacific in this area.
Yeah.
From here all the way up to, Canada there, Vancouver Island. So many shipwrecks have happened just along here. The Oregon coast and Washington coast, the whole coastline is rocky. There's cliffs. How dare you laugh at me? Oh, it wasn't me. Sorry. You've got so many shipwrecks, and the Columbia River, what do you call that there, right? The entrance, the bar.
Yeah,
Columbia River bar which is incredibly deadly, which is why the Coast Guard is stationed out there and does a lot of their training. And I read one article that was saying within 5 minutes it can go from completely calm to fire hose currents whipping through the bar there on the Columbia River entrance.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy out that way.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I kind of wanted to just thank everybody for coming out today.
Absolutely.
And the entire weekend. And again, this goes out to Rocky and everybody who put this together, and the city of Seaside for welcoming us to this great little town.
Absolutely. I wonder if they'll want us back next year.
I don't think so. At least not us.
I'm surprised anybody ever wants us there in the first place.
Because you cuss.
Oh, yes, I do.
So thank you, everybody, for coming out and enjoying everything. And thank you again, Rocky, wherever you are.
He's probably drinking right now. The show's almost over. He's probably on his way out already going, it's done.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.